大家早上好。Oops. 大家早上好。I'm still practicing my toys here, but this is a very good translator that can translate from Chinese to Korean. So when I practice better, I will try to do it again. It is a great pleasure to come back to Gggf. Thanks Asia News Group. I was attending this earlier very good forum a couple of years ago. Sitting there to listening to all the great speakers, to go down to many aspects of artificial intelligence. My presentation today is more to focus on the human and social impact of the ICT, or the information and communications technologies. Of course, artificial intelligence is a very important component of that. So I will go through a number of use scenarios, but coming back to the more global or more macro aspects in terms of social and human development. So my topic today is ICT innovation, or in general, the technologies, the digital technologies innovation, and how is that going to have a very positive impact to human and to our social development. Oops, seems that they skipped the video. I was trying to show you one video that talks about the sustainability development goals that the UN showed in 2030s. But quickly going back to our history, back in the 18th centuries, when people first found steam, and then we kind of liberated from our human and just animals' power. And then in the 19th century, people found electricity, and then we first go into mass production or assembly line. And then in the 19th century, we go into the third industry. That's where the computer starts, or the dawn of the information age. That's where the computer first was developed. In those days, those are mainframe, time frame. But quickly, we go to today, the fourth industrial revolution. And that is the new fusion of IT and OT and all the automation and informatization today. I'm coming from the consortium called 엣지컴퓨팅컨소시엄. We have about 300 members today, and that is where all from the chip maker, from the manufacturing companies to IT companies, all together try to promote the next integration between the information technologies and operational technologies, or IT and OT. Of course, IT includes the communications, or ICT and OT integration. So just look at from the third industrial revolution till now, in this short, about 30 years or 40 years. As I said, back in the late 60s, the first mainframe computer from IBM was developed, and then that's still the prehistory when we look at from ICT revolution's point of view. And then we go to the PC era, and that is a kind of the stage when everybody has a computer to use. As compared to the mainframe time frame, many people share one computer. I remember when I first joined the industry, working for IBM, we have something called time sharing. So many people will share the computer. We have to book time, we have to use the computer. But quickly go to the late 90s, when the internet was created, and that is really the era of the e-commerce or the consumer internet. So in China, we have created huge internet companies like Alibaba, Tencent, JD.com, Baidu, and so on. And you can see that the computing or the use of information as a tool going up like a so-called hockey stick. And then you can see from the communications area, the 4G makes the communications more convenient. You can send not only the messages, but you can send the graphics and so on and so forth. In the IT 3.0 in China, earlier it was also mentioned that it is the age or the period we call the Internet Plus, meaning that Internet era comes to influence or disrupt and change all the industries, from retail, e-commerce to start with, but also in almost every other industries. Of course, in Internet as a container, inside it is also the other technologies like 3D printing, like the social media, like the Facebook, Google, and in China, WeChat, and so on and so forth. But mostly it's also mobile. Everybody got a mobile phone, and also the Internet of Things start to permeate in every corner of our societies and collecting even more data from all this Internet of Things. Now going into the next phase in our ICT evolution or revolution, we're into the industrial internet. Yesterday we talked about in US we have the Industrial Internet Consortium, and in China we also have the Alliance of Industrial Internet, or called AII. And all of these consortiums are also promoting the next phase, which combining the 5G, robotics, artificial intelligence, edge computing, which I can talk a little bit more later, but also other technologies like blockchains and so on and so forth. My key point here is that first, technologies or technology, any single technology does not exist alone by itself. It works with the other technologies as a group. Just like what you look at in your toolbox. There's not only just a hammer or a screwdriver or a pinch. You as a good carpenter, you use all these tools in all different occasions. That's point number one. Technologies work together. So in the IT area, cloud computing, IoT, AI, big data, social, blockchain, you name it, or AR, VR, they all work together as a group. You can call that in the digital infrastructure. Point number two is that tools themselves do not create value. They are tools. Those are the applications that create the values. For example, I used my analogy. The hammers, the screwdrivers are very useful tools, but it's the chair or the desk or the table that you make, become the use and create the value. So tools are tools. It has to be applied to the use application scenarios, and those are the applications that create value. So those are my two key points. So again, today we quickly look at all these technologies together. The rapid changes of all these technologies have tremendously changed our lives. And it's getting faster and faster, all right? Never than before. The rate of changes of all these technologies are much faster than we can cope with in some times. So again, all of this, you can 5Gs or robots or cloud computing and so on, all together change our lives. And that's also create a big movement globally. This sometimes are called the digital transformation or DX. So if you listen to some of the analysts like IDC, they talk about digital transformations that are happening around the world. They're changing all industries, all companies. So I mentioned here is Industry 4.0,
agriculture 4.0, smart cities, which is, you can also call it smart cities or digital cities 4.0 today, and also to the governments. The governments are also trying to learn from the enterprises and try to make the government services much more digital, much more convenient for all the citizens. So the influences of these digital technologies are pervasive, is global, and also is on all people, all industries, all companies, all cities, all nations. Just look around. I came here to Korea almost every year, but early years I came here to first visit Korea to understand the smart cities development. So LG, Samsung, KT, I remember those days. So just look around the cities that we're living in today, it becomes a smart cities. The smart cities movement, again, apply or enabled by all these technologies, focus on 4 areas. One is really try to provide better citizens' livelihood and also happiness, and also try to help the industries, the traditional industries, to modernize, to upgrade, to be modern industries. In China alone, there are many very traditional or legacy kind of industries. We just listened to Christian talk about even shoemaker also try to modernize to be customer driven, from customer requirements all the way back to customer. In China, we also have one example, for example, it's called Kuter. It's in Shandong province. It's men's suits, the same idea. So you can measure your style, you can choose your fabrics, and the suits are made within a week and delivered to you. So smart city is a container, as a platform to drive the modernization of all these very good old traditional industries. But it also try to cultivate many of the new industries. In China, we focus very much today, one of the 7 industries, like new material, new energies, and modern ITs, and so on and so forth. The other area is also environmental protection, sustainability, how to use resources more cleverly, so-called circular economy. That is also one of the key points in terms of good global development, is really sustainable. Last but not least is all the public services or the government services, from security, from disaster management, from all the government services, taxations, and so on. So these 4 areas made up the main goals or the projects, different projects in smart cities. Again, the center of this is going to achieve the UN's 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. So once again, smart cities as a driver is driving, one is the traditional industries upgrade to be more modern, to transform themselves to more competitive in the digital age. But smart city is also as a vehicle to drive more innovation and entrepreneurships. Within the city, there are many so-called innovation hubs. Many private companies like Plug and Play, WeWork, and some others. They're creating very good clusters of these small and micro startup companies and bring them the right business services, bring them the capital and all the services on a digital platform, allow them to create their business or grow their business more effectively. So, and again, within all of this changes, behind it are the very useful tools. In other words, thanks to the digital infrastructure, the digital platform, then all this in China and around the world, the world is going through a great changes, become smart cities, and smart cities are really promoting the further development of innovation and entrepreneurships. Now, the other way to look at this, because today I think Dr. Shen also talked about AI. Last night we also discussed about AI. There are three pillars, as he said. Is computing, is data, is mathematics, or the models. So one big changes in the fourth industrial revolution is that there are a lot of more data because we're living in a connected world. It's always connected. If you believe to the analysts, there are more than 50 billion in smart things by 2030. So these smart things will generate many, many more data, and then the data is used with artificial intelligence in all these application areas that you can see, from water management to environment and so on and so forth. So I will quickly go through a number of use scenarios to show you how this IoTs, all this cloud, all this edge computing, all of this will create more productive, more convenient life. For example, in the mobile or the urban transportation area, your car you're driving is interacting with a lot of other signal generating sensors for collision avoidance, for like traffic lights, even ITS, intelligent traffic systems, ETC, and all of those. As a matter of fact, your car is becoming a smart terminal on the move. The car, even though today we are still a little bit away from the autonomous driving cars, but you're sitting in the car in smart parking before you are parking your car and you get out of the car. Today, you get out of the car and press a button, the car parks itself through smart parking. But I want to bring you to the attention is that not only for the individual, in China there's a very successful company called Didi. And this is chart, even though it's a little bit busy, is to show you how they use the digital technologies, AI, big data, and so on, to create an impact to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals. For example, many of their cars are electric cars. Many of their drivers are part-time, either housewife or even the workers. They use their spare time to drive the cars. And for the ordinary people like me, I just use my phone and fetch a car and go to airport, go to anywhere. So it reduced the number of cars on the road, number of private cars on the road, and also it also reduced the carbon dioxide and so on and so forth. Another example, when I was in iSoftStone, I was working with Huawei, with the universities, with many of the other mobile kind of the device vendors to build this environmental protection system. This system is now installed in many cities in China to monitor the air quality, the water quality, and the drainage from the factories. And then also the law enforcement can use the mobile device to enforce these factories not to produce any pollutant. So again, the technology behind this are all these technologies we talk about. Cloud computing, is edge computing, is AI, is big data, is mobile. But more importantly, when we move into digital economy, it is a shared economy, it is a platform economy, and it's an ecosystem. So many of these examples, you can see all of these factors applied. Another example is the public safety. So today in China, we call this safe city projects, or actually in Chinese name, we call it snow shine projects. So again, the CCTV, the cameras are getting smarter. They can capture much more high definition, very clear view called night vision. And also thanks to the communication technologies, the 4G and 5G, they capture much, much more data. But before AI, when there's a case, the policeman and policewoman, they need to spend hours and hours and watching lots of videotapes, and they can solve the case. But now, thanks to AI, so for example, somehow the animation doesn't work, sorry. One of the very good company called SenseTime is building this street monitoring capabilities, because now the AI capabilities are much, much better. They can capture the plate. Maybe you can notice on the right-hand side are the people. So facial recognitions and the cars, they can capture all this. And not all this data has to be sent to cloud, but many of this processing, many of this data storage and intelligence are stored in the network edge. That's how the edge computing is played in the scenario here. Again, when you look at your daily life, AI is also into a family, in your neighborhood. Here, I think the housewife no longer has to vacuum your house. Xiaomi has this sweeping robot running around your house and just doing the vacuum cleaning. Another product, I'm not going to make an ad for Xiaomi, but they have a product called 小爱同学, meaning little AI. AI pronunciation in Chinese is I. So little AI pal or 小爱 pal is used in the home as your personal assistant, give you the weather forecast, doing your activities arrangement, and so on and so forth. So we talk about Industry 4.0. I'll point you to Agriculture 4.0. I think by 2050, there will be 9.6 billion people needs to be fed. Christian talked about today 7.6 billion people and twice as much of that pair of shoes, number of feet. So, but these are 9.6 mouths, 9.6 billion mouths that needs to be fed. And then because of the arable land, the fresh water, irrigation water, and so on and so forth, climate change. So we need to use technologies to substantially, quickly increase the production of our food. So this is a good example in Australia, in the middle of the desert. They use seawater, use solar lights, and produce 17 kilotons of tomato, which is about 15% of Australia's whole country's tomato production in a year. So this is all doable. And also AI is used greatly today, even in China. You can see that the drone is doing all the spraying. You can use your pad or your phone to give commands to the autonomous farming vehicles. And this, at the corner, you can see this little robot is doing the pesticides applications. On the spot, the right amount, which is less harm to the soil, and so on and so forth. So again, all these technologies, automation and AI, are used not only in the industry, in the manufacturing industries, but also in the agriculture, which is so far is a bit behind in terms of the IT applications. Even going to the range, today we talk about, like you can notice this little cow or little cattle is wearing a collar. So, sorry. So I think, again, the animation was not showing here. I should have done the checking. So the facial recognition is not only for men or for people, it's also for the cattle. They can use the drones to check all these cattle rumbling around and then count them and recognize them. And on the right-hand side, they are measuring. We all measure our BMI, but they can measure every day for every cattle how much food that they consume and how much weight, how much meat they produce. And if they're not eating properly, they know that the cattle is have some healthy problems. Again, sorry, I think the animation doesn't come out. So Industry 4.0 here, behind this chart is really all the automations by robots. And I think we have covered quite a lot about the CPS, the digital twins, and so on and so forth. So in a way that this chart was supposed to show that there are fewer workers in the factory. The smart factories are today fewer people working on that with a lot of automations with the help from the robots. So the rapid advances of this automation and artificial intelligence, we can look at artificial intelligence. I like the word called augmented intelligence. AI is actually acting as a very good assistant to us. So from AlphaGo or the even early days, IBM's Watson beat the very good master in Jeopardy. But today, you look at IBM Watson, is a very good medical assistant to the doctors. But not only doctors, but Watson is applied to logistics, to many other fields. So again, just look at behind this chart, I was trying to show you there's a very good reports. So whether AI is good or is a threat, on one hand, World Economic Forum in 2016 produced a report that seems to show a very pessimistic picture. There's about 5 million jobs affected, or they didn't say the 5 million jobs lost, but 5 million jobs affected by robots and automation. McKinsey did a similar report to talk about 0 to 30% of humans' jobs will be affected. As a matter of fact, close to 4 million people around the world, or 14% of the hourly worker or working hours, people, the job has to be changed. They have to change their job categories. So that's one side of the pessimistic views. The more positive views, and again, I apologize that the chart behind this was not showing. There's a good report called Spillover, Digital Spillover, produced by Huawei and other companies. The essence of that report is saying that all these technologies, thanks to all these technologies and all this automation, is actually creating much, much bigger impact in terms of digital economy. There are lots of different numbers, but fair to say, for example, in China, in 2018, digital economy accounts for more than 1/3 of the total GDP, and it's going to grow even faster. And China will invest a lot more in terms of the digital technologies, not only AI, but 5G and other related technologies to promote digital technologies, to promote digital economy. As a matter of fact, the report is also saying that in the digital era, in digital economy, our traditional way to measure GDP is no longer valid. We need a new way to promote digital economy and to measure the new way to measure GDP. So my last chart to give you a few takeaways. First of all, I believe that technologies or ICT will continue to accelerate and to develop. You remember the hockey stick. After this, maybe quantum computing will be coming very, very quickly. This phenomena, we call it digital transformation, is very pervasive. I think we use different terms. Previous speaker talks about AI-driven enterprises. But digital transformation comes from very different aspects. You have to start from leadership, the whole supply chain, end to end. You have to focus more on the customer experience or customer loyalty. Last but not least, your workforce has to change dramatically. The knowledges that we all get used to are very, very different going forward. So education in the mathematics, in software, in creativity or design thinking, all are very, very important. I want to leave you also that to look at in the new all-connected world, the boundaries between enterprises, the boundaries between nations or countries becomes blurred. And actually, I think we are living together in a small village called the planet Earth. So there are many, many global issues or problems that we're dealing with that will need all of us working together, people to people connecting together. China and Korea are very close neighbors. We have been working together very closely, business-wise, people-wise. So I would urge all of us as people, connect together, communicate together, and use technologies to solve our global issues, to solve some of the problems we call the digital divide, inclusiveness, and all of those issues in the SDN 2030 targets. So let's work together for a better tomorrow. Thank you very much.